would say you don't have to go 0 to 100 real quick. And I think that's what stops people from taking action, is because they think they have to overhaul
Hey, everybody. Thanks again for tuning in to the First Optimal podcast. Really excited for another great episode. We're talking to Katelyn Bliss today. So she is specializes in functional health and provides a lot of great services for health coaching, a lot to do in the area of like high performance women, gut health, and a whole bunch of other topics I'm sure we're going to unpack today. So welcome to the episode. Appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So I know for those who don't know, we'll have all this in the show notes where they can kind of follow your story and engage with you. And we'll be sure to cover that a little bit later too. But so I know your story, but a lot of people may not. Can you kind of walk through what it looked like going from, first getting into kind of the overall fitness and health space to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have kind of a long journey, so I'll try to condense it into a short synopsis here. But I was always very into health, fitness, all the things. I grew up pretty healthy. I was always, dancing and things like that was my background. So always kind of stayed in shape, always kind of had that messed up body image. So I think any female who grew up in the 90s probably had body image dieting issues. I think a lot of women could probably relate to that one. And so, when I got into college, which was now over a decade ago, I actually stopped dancing, didn't really have a huge background in like fitness, didn't really know what to do. And I realized I was gaining weight really quickly, like most people do, that freshman 15, 20 happened to me. And ever since then, I just went down a rabbit hole of just like diet after diet after diet. I was like more working out. I would do Orange Theory classes. I would run. I would do all this crazy cardio. I would do I would go to basically extremes to see results. And it never really got me anywhere long term, I guess I should say. I would lose weight, I would gain it back, I would lose weight, I would gain it back. That went on for like 6 years, all the way into my corporate career, where I ended up making fitness a big part of my life in that sense too. I actually worked for the Orange Theory Fitness corporate office for a very long time, moved my way up to the COO. So I was like a very high performing, like go-getter, do it all. That's always been my mentality, hustler mentality. But when it came down to my health and my fitness, I was working really hard, but I was never really getting where I wanted to be long term. It sucked. So I was just stuck in this weird yo-yo cycle. So pretty much fast forward to today, because that was now at this point about 6 or 7 years ago. Fast forward to today, I might not be at my leanest because I am 9 months pregnant right now, but I did find a way to, lose the 20 pounds I always wanted to lose, change my entire body, fall in love with my body, and really maintain it, which was the most important thing over a 5-year period up until the time that I got pregnant. And I still feel pretty good at this point too, which is nice. So that's kind of a background. I'm just someone who has always been like a hustler. I've always been into health and fitness, and I always tried to make it work, but I was stuck doing the wrong things for a long time, and it hurt me. So that's why I help the women that I do today, because I don't want people to make the same mistakes that I do. So, or that I did.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. And one of the things I was looking at, which is, it's common, but I guess unique for some of the guests I've had recently. So I'd like you to just kind of talk a little bit about it. Is you talk about in your story about, training like Orange Theory or more high intensity training, up to like 10 times a week, 8 to 10 times a week. And if I read it correctly, you dropped, I think you said over 40 pounds underweight you were, or?
Yeah, so I went through a season where I was pretty much starving myself and working out twice a day, which was insane, with Orange Theory classes like that. And I got down to about 104 pounds at the time. And then I rapidly gained that back a couple months later and shot back up to like 145 or something like that.
What was some of the things you noticed? Was it, I'm assuming based on your story that you felt like it was like an unhealthy weight. Did you feel a lot of differences from that being at that lower weight, or what, how did you respond to that?
I mean, at the time it actually felt pretty good to be at that weight, because I think I had such a disordered body dysmorphic mindset, but I physically felt horrible. Like I was always tired all the time. I was always thinking about food. I mean, I was pretty much starving myself at the time, and like, So I was food obsessed. I was running my body to the ground quite literally. I was always tired, fatigued, exhausted. So I liked what I saw when I looked in the mirror because I thought that was a positive thing that I was doing, but it was so impossible to maintain. So I just felt horrible.
Yeah, no, and I think it seems like there's two different vast spectrums, and of course some people are in the middle, but like where you'll see the overtraining, undernourishment, kind of spinning their wheels person, it seems, especially a lot in like women's health. Men
Mhm.
seem to mistakenly body fat for muscle a lot of times, or they think it's a good thing. So, and I can make fun of men because I'm one of them. So, right. So, we're kind of boneheads when it comes to that. But then on the flip side, others that are struggling with weight loss and they can't figure it out, and just kind of that frustration, or they're struggling with food noise and cravings and things like that. So I think it's interesting to have, I would imagine, both perspectives as you're working with clients. When you have clients coming to you, what's the demographic like as far as age or goals they have? Are they similar to what you had before, or like what you're just describing?
Yeah, I would say most of the women that we work with, they're somewhere within the age of like 30 to 45. And at this point, they've probably tried a lot of different things, similar to what I had done, right? So they've gone to the group fitness classes. They think burning more calories in their workout is better. They think they don't have a good workout unless they sweat a lot. They've probably done intermittent fasting or keto or paleo or eating like a bodybuilder type of meal plans, all of those things. And I think a big misconception a lot of women that come to me have is they think that they have to have this enormous amount of willpower because all of these things that they do are pretty extreme. And so they think, oh, I know what to do. I just need to do it because they've seen results with it before. I can't stick with it. But what I always say back to them, I was like, no one can stick with that. Right? So it's like you actually think it's a problem with you when the reality is what's actually holding you back is all the things that you're trying. But then you look back at yourself and you're like, well, I can't stay consistent. This does get results. So I'm the reason I'm stuck. And then you're trying to start over and then you never really get anywhere.
Yeah. Would you say, as far as, age group, is there differences between, say someone maybe who's starting a family that you're working with, or maybe a little earlier in life versus maybe midlife women that you're working with? Are there some differences in either their view on health or maybe some misconceptions they have?
It really depends on the person and their background. I will say a lot of women post pregnancy after having children and things like that do have this belief that they can never get back to where they were before
Sure.
they had kids. And that is that's a very large misconception a lot of women have when the reality is they can't. Like the amount of women that tell me, well, I was, X, Y, and Z, post or pre-pregnancy, but realistically, I mean, I don't even know if that's real. They almost kind of talk themselves out of even being able to even work towards the goal because they think it's unrealistic, which I always think is funny because I'm like, no, I've seen so many women actually fall in love with their body again post-pregnancy and actually get better results than where they were before. So that is a big misconception that a lot of women have, and they do have this mindset around it. It's because now I'm a mom and I've gone through pregnancy and my hormones have changed. But I will say, even without that, those are typically my women who are, in their like mid to later 30s. But even the women that are in their earlier 30s, I would say, are struggling with this mindset of almost like, I'm getting older and this is just how it is now. And I'm like, you're 30 years old.
Right.
You should, like, this is not just how it is now. Like, you should not be feeling this way. So I think as a whole, honestly, a lot of women that I work with do believe that they're just kind of stuck because of age or their hormones have changed or things like that. When the reality is, that's not why they're stuck. So it's kind of sad to see, but thankfully we're able to help a lot of people out of that mindset, which is kind
Yeah.
of
No, for sure. What would you say are some of the triggers out there? Like people that when you ask them like, hey, why did you call? Why did you book with me? Just for those listening, of when they maybe should engage with, a health coach, someone with your experience. And maybe it's like, hey, that signals a good reason to call a timeout. Like what would be some things that come to mind when you think about that?
honestly, what it all boils down to is just women who feel stuck. right? They have tried to do it on their own, which I could argue that maybe make that phone call before you feel so stuck and you've tried all the things and maybe you've dug the hole deeper than it needs to go. Because that's what I did. I was stubborn for 6 years and I was like, I can do this on my own. I know how to do this. I can willpower through it. I would just more working out, more diets, more this, more that. And it made a bad problem worse. So, but I will say a lot of women, by the time they do get on the phone with me, have probably dug the hole deeper and they've tried a lot of different diets and they tried the Orange Theory or the F45 or the burn boot camps or they're training for a half marathon or whatever that is, right? So they're trying to basically eat less, move more in a very aggressive fashion and it's just not working. And they're like, they're at this point, they're at this breaking point where they're like, I feel like my body just maybe it doesn't respond because now I'm older and I don't know what to do. So I need someone to dive into this with me and tell me what to do.
Got it. Yeah. So someone comes in, they're training this higher intensity training. It sounds like they're already tracking to their best of their ability their food. I'm just curious to what are some common gaps you see in their approach? Like what are some of the first things? I know we're painting with a broad brush here, but what are some first things that you go into trying to alter or change to help kind of get them moving in the right direction if they've been kind of beating their head against the wall for maybe a couple of years or whatever the time frame is?
Yeah, so I break this down into 2 different areas. There's really nutrition is a big one, right? Would be the first area we take a look at. And what I find with so many women, and this is actually what I did for a long time, is they always are trying to focus on eating as little as possible, and also a lot of low calorie type of foods, right? So, but the problem becomes if you're trying to eat as little as possible, low calorie foods, you're maybe living off of protein bars, protein shakes, your meals are like chicken and a veggie type of thing, a salad, right?
Sure.
That's great. But what happens with so many women is it ends up backfiring them in either two or both areas. They get to the end of the day, they're starving and they blow it, or they get to the weekend and they're starving and they blow it. So they're stuck in this weird pattern where they feel like they're eating very healthy and maybe they're not totally inconsistent, but they're eating very healthy. They're going through patterns where they're falling off track because they're almost being too restrictive on the back end. And they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot and just putting themselves in maintenance. And that's why they can't lose weight. So many women, they think like, I'm eating so healthy, I'm doing this all, but my body won't respond. I'm like, well, no, the reality is, yeah, sure, you're eating really healthy 60 to 70, maybe 70% of the time, but then you're like totally blowing it out of the water every night or every weekend. And that's not getting you anywhere, So that's the first thing we look at. And it's funny because we see so many women when they actually focus on eating more and having more flexibility with their diet, they get more consistent across the board and they see better results. So that's a big
when you're first stepping into that, what does that look like? Like, are you using some kind of dietary like recall? And then how do you navigate from what you just described into like the end, not really end, I guess it's a continuum, but like the next phase, if you will, of like their nutrition? Like, what does that journey look like from that point to the next?
Yeah. So whenever anyone starts working with us, the first thing, almost every single woman I work with tells me that they eat healthy. And I'm like, that's great. What does that actually mean? Like,
Right.
I'm like, there's few and far between people are just like, I can't stop going through the McDonald's drive-through. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not, most women are eating healthy. And so in my mind, I'm like, we got to find out why you're eating healthy and you're not seeing results. What is that roadblock? Is it that yo-yo cycle where you're simply eating too many calories? Is your food quality not great? What's working against you here? What one or multiple things? So we do about like a 5 to 7 day assessment with every single client before we even like put together a nutrition protocol, because we want to see what you're doing.
Right.
What are you eating? How are you fueling your body? Keep it honest, So that's the first place that we start. Then from there, that's when we want to start making dietary changes. So focusing on, and we see so many different things in these assessments in terms of what people are doing wrong. So that could look different for so many people, but for a lot of women, it's actually encouraging them to fuel their body more throughout the week and throughout the day. So they're not having these like backfires that keep happening to them. We also focus on having a lot of our clients, actually working more flexible foods into their diet. I'm a big believer in eating healthy most of the time, but I personally have a sweet tooth and I like food and I'm a foodie, right? So we really help them basically fuel their body more, eat more food in a sense, right? And then actually enjoy what they're eating and learn how to have flexibility. So now again, they get less of this rebound effect that they have with so many diets that they've tried.
Yeah, and I would imagine too, with some people, it's probably a mental relief there, would you say, as far as once it's like worked into their plan?
Yes. We have so many women that tell us, I can't believe I'm eating this much food and I'm losing weight, because everything that they've done before, they think they have to starve themselves. And so it's a big mindset shift for a lot of women.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I've seen it with all of the above, like women too, but like it's just because of the volume of food, it's definitely even more eye opening with like larger athletes. I've noticed, just because like I said, that the volume is like multiplied by several. If you have a 250, 300 pound male, looking at the differences. But I am curious, when they first come in, are there like, I have my top three that I hear from a lot of coaches and dietitians and such, but I'm curious to your top three, if you will, of, it can be a combo of macro and micronutrients, but like what are like like what are like the three things, nutrition, that they're not, you see in women's health, that they're just on average not getting enough of, if you had to rank them in any, in the, like your top three that you see?
In terms of like what they're eating and what they're not.
Yeah, like, yeah,
Typically calories is one of them. They're
just total
trying to
calories, not
low
enough.
calorie, right? Too low calorie. And it's crazy because you would think with a lot of grown women, and I hate to say this, but I mean, getting people to eat their fruits and vegetables is
Mhm.
sometimes, I mean, it's very interesting. Like I think a lot of people have made a shift to, they want to do the keto products and the diet foods and like this and that and whatever. And they've kind of shifted away from like whole real food, which is so interesting. So that's not every client, but I do see that quite a bit.
Yeah.
Fruit being one of them too, because a lot of women are like, oh, fruit, like it's gonna make me fat, it has sugar. I'm like, no.
Right.
So micronutrients is a big one for sure. Calories is a big one for sure. I would say those would be the top two. I'm honestly kind of blanking on third.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of, you definitely hit one of mine, under, I would say, falls into like the fruit and vegetables that I've heard a lot, but I've heard mainly like protein, fiber, and water. Like those are like the three I hear. But
Yep.
especially as age progresses, there's actually some pretty interesting research out there as far as a percent of calories, women already eat a relatively low percent of their total calories from protein. And as they're going on through life, midlife, and post menopause, their volume of total calories goes down, but the percent stays the same. But that percent they were doing before in earlier life was just barely enough to
Yep.
be at the minimums. And so I just always found that interesting. But the total calories one's another, that's a good one too, because I don't think we've really talked about that as much, because some of the people I've seen or had discussions with, they try to look at calories on like a weekly cadence versus a daily, and it seems to help them. Is that something, how do you view that? Like if you're trying to put together a plan and calories is like one of the drivers of that plan, is it daily, weekly, monthly? Like how do you kind of, is that
Yeah, we focus more on ranges. I don't
okay?
think it's great for people's mindset to be like, I have to be at this like set number every
Yeah.
single day, you know? So I do focus a lot on ranges with my clients, and I typically look at a weekly view, but I also look at a daily view, because I don't want people to think, oh, well, if I eat 1,000 calories, these 3 days, and I can eat 3,000 calories these other days, but the number is the same. Like, we don't want that. But I do tell some of my clients, like, listen, if you want to have a little bit more flexibility on a Saturday night, and you're a little bit lower on the calories Monday through Friday, and it's not this huge swing, that's also fine too. And that's actually probably going to get you more consistent. So on a day-to-day basis, we focus on like keeping them basically within a very healthy range. It's going to keep them full, satiated, but if fat loss is the goal, like within a moderate deficit. Some of our clients have a little bit of weekend flexibility there, just because they might have more plans or go out to eat, busy women, stuff like that. So it's kind of both, not monthly. We don't look at monthly quite as much.
Sure.
There are exceptions to that with certain women with their cycles and, having bad periods and trying to figure out things there. But most people, it's more of a daily, weekly type of cadence.
Yeah, no, it makes sense because I've seen, as far as when you get into exercise and their nutrition, is it, for your clientele, it's not different for many, right? Like certain athletes, it's pretty easy to plug in what I'm about to describe, but I would imagine general population, just people trying to be fit and healthy, with other things, families, careers, etc., might be a little challenging. But do you alter your approach to their diets based on their activity? Like, hey, these are the days where I'm doing more intense training, or lower days, or does that tend to be kind of system overload a little bit early on with them?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of doing calorie cycling or carb cycling or anything especially in the beginning for people, just because I find it just gets a bit too complex for them,
Yeah,
right? A lot of our clients, they've done diets, but to be honest, a lot of our clients they might have dabbled in macros or tracking, but they don't have a ton of experience there. So I find if they always have kind of like this moving target of like different targets on different days, it's just a bit overwhelming. And it's that's that last little bit of like results that we're looking for. Most people need to be focusing on that 95% picture versus like the last little like
sure.
1% percenters. So I do think there's definitely merit to it, but for our client base, we don't do a ton of that just because it's generally not needed and it overcomplicates the process, and they're just not there yet.
Yeah, it's kind of like that saying you see floating around online where it's like compliance is the science, right? Where it's like just getting someone in knowing, I think, especially for coaches out there or aspiring coaches, is like really trying to have a model or system that's flexible for the clientele to where, I know early in my career, it was more physique athletes I worked with. I haven't done coaching in a long time, but when I used to, um, that was very, very specific, very specific. I didn't realize how specific it was until I started training in the corporate world and working with, busy working professionals. And I was just like, what do you mean? You want to eat this or eat that? I'm just, I was in my early 20s. Like I just clueless to the reality of how difficult life gets as you, start adding in family and kids schedules and other things. And so I had to evolve over time and learn that. But I think I also, and I would recommend this to any coaches out there is, referring out if it's not your niche, because that could be a really bad experience for the person. They're trusting you with their health and making sure you have the right model with which it sounds like yours is targeted perfectly for your audience and clientele.
Yeah. And it's funny because I have had quite a few women actually come to me, and I'm like, actually, I feel like you would work better over with this person, because I'm like, if I can't help you, I don't want to help you. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, I do think there's a lot of merit to what you're saying about compliance. I tell people all the time, especially within our first couple conversations, I can give you the best game plan in the world, but if you don't do it, it's not helping either of us.
Right.
Right. So that's why we're so big when we're working with anyone. I tell people, of course, we have to change your lifestyle. Obviously, you can't do the same thing you're doing now and see see a different result. That's literally the definition of insanity. Of course, we've got to make changes. But at the end of the day, if we try to flip your whole life upside down, you're not going to do that either, right? So we've got to meet you where you're at, meet you in the middle, and start to make these changes that are doable, that you can consistently put effort in, because you're going to get a lot more results if we can keep you consistent over the next 6 months versus if you're trying to do a super aggressive plan and falling off every other week.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, just to tie back into the exercise component, because as you were describing some of the women that are coming in, I'm curious, what does that conversation sound like, and how to get them to transition, for example, from such a long time of 5 days a week, or whatever the intensity is of like more hit training, high intensity, all that, to reverse it. How do you approach that? What does the conversation look like, for one? And then I'm curious to, is that part of what you do, is layer in different days with different focuses to kind of back that off? Like how do you, I know everything's unique and specific, but just in general, how do you unpack that?
Yeah. So I always try to explain, anytime I'm doing anything with a client, I don't just tell them what they need to do and that they're doing something wrong and we just need to change it, because I try to explain to them why.
Mhm.
So that's where we always start, right? And so they still have trouble wrapping their head around it. Like I have actually this one client who comes to mind. She was a entrepreneur, just like one of those hustler go-getters up at 5 a.m. She did, she was in her later 30s when we worked together. Now she's in her early 40s. And she was a runner. She loved running. And I swear for the first 6 months of us working together, she didn't like me so much. She did. She was a good student because she was so type A, but like it took a while to get her mindset to really turn around. But I had to just keep drilling down to her, listen, what you've been doing up until now has not been working, and this is why, right? When we are trying to go into a fat loss phase, we are going into a catabolic environment. And if we're throwing a ton of additional stressors and cardio on top of that, you're going to lose muscle, you're going to feel puffy, you're going to feel inflamed, you're not going to recover well. It's not going to give you that toned look that you think it's going to give you just because you're burning a ton of calories, right? And so the first thing is explaining the science, explaining the why, constantly coaching them as they go, because their mindset is going to be like, I'm not burning enough calories, I'm not doing enough, I need to do more, right? I had that same mindset. And then we also do have a way of backing it down, right? Like this client, she was working out 5-6 days a week, running, just cardio, right? Maybe some Pure Bar in between, but like even on her Pure Bar day, she's like, I still got to run, I still got to get my calories in, right? And so we met in the middle. I was like, I just want you to start with 2 strength training days, and we're going to do 3 cardio days. And then that became 3 strength training days and 2 cardio days. And then that slowly became 4 strength training days, right? And then just the 1 cardio day. Now she doesn't even work with me. I still see her. Now she's like in the gym all the time with her husband, like under the barbell, getting strong. I'm like, damn, girl, you're doing Bulgarian split squats like heavier than I do. Yeah. But it's a mindset shift, right? So what it comes down to is you got to explain the why, you got to constantly coach them through it, and you do need to titrate down as well, because people will freak out if you just take it all out.
Yeah, no, understandable. And I can imagine, especially like the slightest fluctuation in the scale during that transition, it's going to be more of a freak out, because I've always found it like interesting with guys. They're like on a fat loss regimen, and then if their weight is going lower, they're excited at first, but then they get to a certain point where like, I don't want it to go lower. And then they actually are happy when it's not going down as fast. And then the flip side, like women are complete opposite. And it's just generally, right? And so I always find a lot of what I hear is a lot of the coaching out there is also the mental game of how to, guide them through it and say, hey, this is a plan. It's a process, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of, when they're the process, if you will, what are some tools you like to use early on with somebody? I mean, it seems like Whole Foods is going to be your ideal approach for a lot of things, but do you have any of your go-to supplements in general that you see are helping women maybe jumpstart things, or perhaps fill gaps in the interim while they're trying to get into this new way of eating that you're coaching them through? Are there any things that come to mind?
So honestly, it really, and I hate to say this, right? We work with so many women at this point. It really does depend on the client, right? For some clients, I don't really want to throw supplements in there quite yet, because again, like we have such big gaps with the nutrition that I'm like, let's actually just hyper focus on that and help you with that. Now, for some women, if they're coming to me though, and they feel like my energy is tanked, I feel like garbage. There's red flags that are signaling. I do look at labs and blood work for our clients and really try to identify, okay, what's going to help you most. A big thing I see with a lot of clients is iron is a big contributor to that. So like some of our clients, they'll get their labs done. We take a look at their ferritin levels, their iron, super low. So once we fix that, that's easy to be fixed through nutrition, yes, but also supplementation. That's been a game changer for a lot of our clients. Small things too, like vitamin D for a lot of people as well. I'm like, none of us get enough sunlight. Right. It's like vitamin D is a big one. B complex is a big one for a lot of our clients. A lot of times when we're looking at supplements just on a very basic level, it's because people's energy is in a really bad spot. They don't understand why, right? So we try to figure out what that is. I do try to not do a ton of supplement recommendations unless I see what's going on with someone's labs or blood work, just because I don't want to over supplement on something we don't actually need.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a combination of like, right, it turns into waste or ineffective, and then all of a sudden you're losing credibility because you're trying to give someone a relief, but without having those benchmarks to tell. With iron, like what would be some examples? Because I think that is something that does come up from time to time as well, that I hear. What are some examples of like foods you work into the diet to help improve their iron over time?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of clients actually have this misconception. And I hear this all the time on calls with people that they're like, oh, and I avoid red meat and I mean, honestly, getting some more red meat into your diet is going to be huge when it comes down to iron. So working that in a couple times per week, and just honestly, to your point from before, getting more protein in general. A lot of women do come to us. I can't believe I didn't think of that as my third thing. I must have had a pregnancy brain moment. But yeah, protein is never high enough. I mean, most women come in and they're eating maybe 50 grams of protein a day, 75 grams of protein a day, very low. And so getting those heme sources of iron is very important, because you have your heme and your non-heme. The non-heme is going to come from veggies and things like that. You can't absorb a lot of that, right? So you really need to get it more from like the animal-based side of things. So getting things, obviously red meat's going to be top, but turkey, chicken, just more protein sources in their diet is huge. Another thing a lot of women don't realize is if you have dairy with your iron, your body can't uptake and absorb it the same. So kind of separating that out can be very helpful for a lot of people. And like,
Interesting.
yeah, I'm like, don't hate me, but maybe don't have the Greek yogurt with your Mexican taco bowl that has your ground beef in it, even though it's delicious, so those are small things, but yeah, bringing that up to the forefront is very helpful for a lot of people. If we look at vegetarians, that's when we've got to supplement, because they can't obviously fit that in.
Sure. Yeah. And is there a time period of when you're doing like follow-up labs to check, like, let's just say an example, a woman's low iron, say, 35 to 50 age range, and they're struggling with energy and making some of those symptoms that, and you notice it's low. When would you do follow-up labs to see like how, how the iron's bouncing back or not?
I typically like to see things over about 3 months. We test about 3 months. Some people we do it sooner for, but I would say 3 months is typically a good benchmark for most people, because honestly, for a lot of the women we work with, they're so busy that going in for labs is getting them to go in for labs is like pulling teeth.
Sure.
So that's obviously a factor, but also too, a lot of times when we start supplementing with certain things, iron or other things that we see we need to supplement with, they start feeling better, right? We start to get that anecdotal evidence of, okay, you're feeling better. So we kind of go based off of that. And then, in 3 months, we pre-pull things and we're like, okay, cool. What do we need to shift and adjust here? So
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then I know we were talking a little bit before recording about other testing, because you do a lot of work in gut health as well. Is that correct?
yep. So we really got into that over the last couple of years, because I found so many women, we could just only help them so much. And with all the things that we're exposed to in our modern day society and environment, really does not set us up for the best hormonal health, gut health. It just doesn't, right? And so I've never seen a perfect GI map unless someone goes through a protocol. So we do GI mapping with our clients, which is pretty much a stool sample you would do from home that gives you the full breakdown of everything that's going on in your gut microbiome. If there's something off, we're going to find out what it is. We also do Dutch testing with our clients as well, and then we do functional lab work reviews too. So those are like the 3 top ones. But gut health, yeah, we do a lot with the GI maps for sure.
And with that, are there any common, as a percent, maybe more than 2/3 of the time, like common things you're finding in your clients from the GI maps? I mean, obviously everyone's unique, but just are there any of the areas you find generally that are popping up more than others?
Very commonly, I see low stomach acid is a big one. A lot of women have a couple overgrowths that pop up in their GI map, and typically when you have some sort of overgrowth, that's going to signal to us you actually have a stomach acid issue, because if you have enough stomach acid, your body should be able to make it so that these certain organisms cannot overgrow within your gut. But if you don't have enough of that stomach acid, they do. So overgrowths come up quite a bit. Gut dysbiosis comes up quite a bit. So we do have, healthy bacteria and flora within our gut. But you can have too much or too little of a good thing. So, we see that all of the time. And it's funny, acromantia specifically tends to be one that's low for a lot of people, and they have a lot of food noise, and that's actually very much so connected to that. So it's funny once we fix that, hunger signaling changes.
Yep.
So gut dysbiosis is a big one. Acromantia is a big one that we see with under that umbrella. Overgrowth, see a lot of candida, which is like a yeast-based overgrowth. H. pylori is another one that we see quite a bit that we got to kill off. And then another one I see, I'll give you the last two, would be secretory IgA being in a very good bad spot. So like their gut lining, essentially we have some leaky gut going on, so it's causing a lot of systemic inflammation. I had one client who, man, she was having the worst hives, like every month whenever she would get super horrible hives. And we did a GI map for her. We found out her GI map actually wasn't even that bad, but we found out she had like 2 overgrowths and her secretory IgA was low. So once we started repairing her gut lining and we killed off some of we killed off the bad stuff first, then restored her gut lining, no hives, no issues, right? Because now her gut permeability has been restored, right? So that's a big one. And then last one would be a lot of women have issues with just their digestive enzymes. So they're not breaking down their food, they feel bloated all the time.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because there's a lot, definitely a lot of utility in I think everybody, probably in that 30 to 50 age range, 35 to 50, to at one point or another get a GI map, because as you mentioned, if you have these symptoms presenting themselves in other areas of the body, it's not always just generally about that area of the body. Like, oh, I'm breaking out and I can't explain it, or my hair's thinning, or you mentioned hives. Like, they go to where the hives are showing or where the action's happening, but it's coming from a different area. And so I think that's really good that you pointed those out as different examples of how, it ties back to the gut, for example. I'm curious, because you mentioned gut permeability. What are some of the protocols or approaches you take in repairing that? And generally, how long is that? I mean, I know there's a lot of nuance and individual approaches here, but just kind of generally, like what does that look like if you're fixing someone's gut lining?
Yeah, so we have a 3-phase process for most people. Like you said, there's going to be nuance, but we typically do a prep, kill, and then restore. So prepping, if you already have a bad gut lining and we're killing something off, I don't want to just dump a bunch of antimicrobials on your poor gut on day one, right? So for a lot of clients, we're bringing them through a prep phase where we're having them take specific supplements, getting their liver ready. So a lot of milk thistle is a big one we use for a lot of our clients. We use another supplement called IgGI Shield, which helps a lot with their gut and kind of prepping them for that kill phase. Then in the kill phase, that can be typically anywhere from like a 2 to 4 week process for most people, just depending on how much we found. 6 weeks if someone really has a lot of stuff going on, but I try not to bring it out that far. Just because, again, it can be harsh on the gut. Sometimes we even want to break it up into 2 kill phases, but that's few and far between. So we go through a kill phase. That's going to be specific antimicrobials, whatever we found, along with binders and all those things. And then we break into the restore phase, because you don't want to try to restore the gut and kill stuff off at the same time. It doesn't make sense, right? So then once we've killed off the bad, I always tell my clients, like, you kill off the bad, we're also going to kill off some of that good. We need to restore your gut lining. We need to, reintroduce good, healthy gut flora back into the environment. So within the restore phase, that's typically a 3 to 6 month process for most clients. And we're focusing on specific supplements for that. And that can look different. Probiotics is another big one, because we want to fix, the dysbiosis and get some of that good bacteria back in there. Digestive enzyme specific or stomach acid support or that can fall under the same umbrella. And then food quality is a big one too. Just trying to get the right things from their food quality, fermented foods, cooked down foods, things like that, to try to restore that. So 3-phase approach as a whole. We're probably looking at, I give it about 6 months in totality to really
Sure.
get to a good spot.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, because I think, and that's what I see a lot of is just anecdotally talking to people. You know, I feel this, so I take this, or they're using. I'm trying to remember the terms now, but like the difference between, you know, like a pancreatic enzyme was one of the supplements versus like a digestive, or a mixture of the wrong, how do I put it, the wrong enzyme or digestive support at the wrong time with the wrong meal.
Yep.
And then they're complaining about, well, that doesn't work, or I get even more bloated or gassy or whatever. It, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, can you kind of talk about maybe some potentially, maybe things you've seen, or maybe things you could just assume could happen? Like, what are some of the parts of those protocols that perhaps someone could be taking at the wrong time, and what would it feel like, if that makes sense? Like, you know, if they're doing, like I said, like an enzyme, and they're taking it wrong, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, you might just be having, it's not that what you're taking is bad, but you're trying to fix the wrong problem, which is why I'm such a fan of testing and not guessing. Because, like, for example, if someone does a GI map with me and we see where all their gut bacteria is at and they need a probiotic, well, so many women are taking the wrong probiotic. You might have an overgrowth in the type of probiotic that you're taking. Now we're making a bad problem worse versus supporting what you actually need, right?
Sure.
So, you know, at the end of the day, I find for a lot of people, they're trying to kind of like self-diagnose, and even social media has made this so much worse because, you know, now everyone thinks, oh, I have a parasite, or oh, I have this issue. And it's like, they think they need to go through these cleanses or take these enzymes or take these specific probiotics. And it's like, you don't even know what your problem is. So
Right.
you're trying to fix the wrong problem more than likely.
Right.
And I see it all the time. You know, probiotics is where it comes up the most, I feel like, for people.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely spot on with that, because I see it a lot where different people using different things at the wrong time. And then it's interesting because, you know, just interacting with men and women, I see like more of an acceptance with men, where at least a good thing is women are saying, hey, this is a problem, like I feel this way, and it's you know, it's affecting me, where um you know, I definitely commend them for trying to take the action, but I think it can, I don't want to say do more harm than good, but definitely cost more, and more mental and financial stress, because you're doing something and you're feeling worse or just the same. And then you're also dishing out some of these products, great products, if they're applied at the right time, but they can get pretty costly too.
Exactly. And then these women get this mindset of, I've tried so many things and nothing works.
Right.
I must just be stuck this way. There's something wrong with me. And it's like, well, no, you're just, you're trying the wrong things.
Right. Right.
You know, we can fix that. We can actually get you results and get you feeling better, you know?
Right. Yeah. And for the gut lining, is there any other things that you know, you've seen work? Like I've heard of this. This is kind of anecdotal, but like people taking, you know, a certain amount of water and like glutamine in the morning for gut permeability, and there's other tools for that. What are some other common things you see that have been shown to be beneficial when you're doing those follow-up tests?
You mean in terms of like supplements that they would take?
Yeah, or food, or just changes in general to help improve that gut permeability. Just curious to what other things you haven't that come to
Yeah,
mind.
I mean, we're really big on, there's a specific supplement that we use all the time with our clients. It's called GI Revive. It's a little on the pricey side, but it is 1000% worth it. I even tell a lot of my clients, you know, once we fix all of this, like I'd recommend you still take it about like 2 to 3 times a week just for general maintenance. Because what it's going to do is it's really going to support those junctions within your gut lining to help keep everything like nice and tight. Glutamine is another thing we typically pair it with. The GI Revive does have glutamine within it, but not enough in my opinion. So we do that for people like first thing in the morning before you've had any food, which that helps a lot for people. We also want to think about just, you know, when it comes down to it, a lot of like soothing foods like bone broths, collagen, things like that can be really good. Fully cooking down your foods can be good. Try not to, you know, I always joke with my clients in the heal phase. I'm like, don't enter any spicy food eating contests. Please don't go on any drinking benders. You know, I'm like, if you have a tequila soda or two on the weekend, I'm not going to kill you, but like, you know, let's try to be, you know, so especially when they're going through that restore phase, we just try to kind of baby the gut in terms of what we're ingesting. And then we try to give them supplements that we know are going to help restore. So with both of those things, it helps a lot.
Got it. Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense. Any common myths out there that you just wish would die and go away when it comes to gut health? Like, what are some things that you're hearing or seeing, I should say, either of the two, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, and I feel like this has calmed down a little bit on social media, but for a while there, I don't know if this was just my algorithm, but I was seeing that everyone has a parasite. Like everyone needs to do a parasite cleanse. I'll be honest, I've done so many GI maps with people. I've seen one parasite come up ever. It's not a very common thing. So if you're having issues, you probably don't have a parasite. It's probably something else. Another thing with gut health is a lot of women, I think that just because something is common, that it's normal, and it's not. Like I'll talk to a lot of women. I'll be like, okay, so how's your regularity? You know, I always joke with people on my initial calls before they become members. I'm like, I know we just met, but like, how's your gut health? You know, bathroom schedule. You know, I'm like,
right.
But someone would be like, fine, and I'll be like, okay, cool. So you're going to the bathroom every day, and they're like, well, no, you know. And so like some women will think certain things are normal because it's their normal or it's common, but it's actually not. You know, you should be going every day in the morning. You should not be feeling super bloated after every single meal. A lot of women think that is also normal, right? So those are big ones that I see. And then I think another, you know, myth is just that you can supplement it away. And I always tell my clients, I'm like, yeah, supplements, if we're going to fix your gut, we're going to get a very specific protocol there and it's going to help. But your habits and what you're actually putting into your body are going to be a huge piece of this too. So you've got to put in that work there.
Yeah, no, and I'm curious too, do you find things, especially when you're working with maybe some of these women that, as you were describing, you know, they have really high demanding jobs, they're, you know, hooked on kind of the adrenaline, the type A stuff, the high intensity workouts. Are you finding issues with either like high amounts of stimulants or issues with hydration? Are those things that you focus on in your plans, or do you not see that as much?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely do. It depends on the client. I would say coffee is a big one for people, of course. So I try to tell my clients, you know, don't have coffee after noon, if you can, right? 2 can like be a very late cutoff, but that is something we work on with a lot of people. Hydration is a big one for a lot of people too. I think they get busy. They don't think about it. One of the things I always have all my clients do is just get yourself a 40 to 50 ounce water bottle. If you fill that up 2-3 times throughout the day, you're going to be good. So yeah, a lot of people are definitely probably over consuming on the caffeine and under consuming on what's actually going to keep.
Just make sure to buy about 20 cheap ones and then the 3 to 5 good ones that you want and hide them, because if you're anything like me, with my daughters, they grow legs all the time. They got soccer, they're going to school, they're going here, and I'm like, what happened? We got all these like massive water bottles and all the nicer ones and all this, and I'm like, I go to run out and I can't find one. So
yeah, I have learned that too. This is not a Stanley. This is the cheaper one I got on Amazon. I have multiple of these in my house.
Oh yeah, ours are all even the nicer ones are all banged up from them throwing them around with sports and stuff. So that's what you have to look forward to.
Can't wait. Yeah, I'm having a girl too. So
yeah, we love it. We love it. I'm not going to complain. So
yep, less than a month.
Good stuff. Well, a couple of just kind of questions to round out what we're discussing today. I know you're really busy and going to be even busier, you know, pretty soon here. I'm curious though, for the women out there who maybe are just starting off. We talked a lot about those who are working out maybe too much, not eating enough. So what would be a couple tips? You know, I happen to be listening to this and I'm not working out, but I want to start. You know, I got holidays coming up. That's a big mental block for a lot of people to start a healthy journey. What would be a couple tips that they could take or usually give to kind of start moving them in that direction?
Yeah, I would say you don't have to go 0 to 100 real quick. And I think that's what stops people from taking action, is because they think they have to overhaul it at one time. So the first thing is start small, right? If you are, you know, going from 0 to 5 workouts a week, and then you have all these different habits that you're trying to check off, and then you're trying to all of a sudden get into macros and you're trying to do that, you're going to do it for a couple days. You're going to be like, this is too much. And you're going to say, screw it. And you're not going to do it. Right. So start with small things first, right? If you even start doing strength training 1 to 2 times per week, that's going to be better if you're doing nothing right now, right? Most of my clients, honestly, don't work out more than 3 to 4. Mm-hmm. So if you start with 1 to 2, that will be great. When it comes down to your workouts, calories burn and sweating a lot does not mean you're having a good workout. Just focus on getting stronger and building muscle. It's gonna help you tremendously with how you look, with how you feel. It's not gonna run you into the ground. You can get away with 30, 45 minutes even from home. And if you're a beginner, you can start with body weight. So I would say just start small there. Don't try to go, 5 days a week or get into a gym or anything crazy like that. Meet yourself where you're at. Build the consistency, build that trust in yourself. On the nutrition end, I would say if you're brand new, just start focusing on what you can add. Don't immediately go to what you need to take away. A lot of women are like, okay, I'm starting this diet, and so I'm not going to eat sugar, and I'm not going to eat carbs, and I'm not going to eat this, I'm not going to eat that. That is a fast track to binging on all the things that you can't have. Yeah. It really, truly is. And that's what I did for a long time. So I always promote, what can we start adding to our nutrition? Can we add in more protein? None of us are getting more protein, right? Can you focus on having a fist-sized amount of protein in every single meal this week, right? Can you focus on adding a vegetable or a fruit or a micronutrient to every single meal? When you start adding, a lot of times the bad stuff naturally starts crowding. So focus on food quality. And then any other habits that you want to work into, just again, meet yourself where you're at. If I have a client who comes to me and they're getting 3,000 steps a day, we're not getting 10K on day one.
Right.
We're getting 4. Right? And so again, it really comes down to with those 3 main areas, meet yourself where you're at and then work into it versus trying to go 0 to 100 really quick. So that's where people just burn out.
No, it makes a lot of sense because just a couple things I thought of when you were describing your approach is if someone's eating more, you're adding to it as their first phase. It's more of a feeling of abundance than, restriction. And so it's a different mental framing to be a little more receptive. And like you said, it does naturally happen. I know even personally myself, when I started to focus more on my fiber intake, I'm like, I can't get more other food. It wasn't bad food, but some of the other macronutrients I realized my body didn't really need as much. I just ate them for, to feel fuller. And then as I started to focus on adding stuff, my caloric intake indirectly went down, even though it wasn't my goal. I wasn't trying to do that. So, and again, I'm just talking myself, but I've seen that with a lot of people. And I think that's a really, really great point that you made there. Yeah. And I think it's just, as you said, just for those that are just starting, it's celebrate the small wins, because I often will tell people, like I had a couple friends and one of them, I don't think he listens to the podcast, so I can say this, but he was a Monday guy. Like this Monday, I'm starting this month. So if you're that person where you're like, you have the day circled and you're starting this big program and you're getting all like, that's probably a sign to maybe you're about to embark on something that's not going to be sustainable for you. And there's different varying degrees of that, but I just would try to always explain it to them. It's like, okay, but it's Saturday. How about you to start today? Like just add a couple more servings of fruit and a little more water and walk an extra 1,000 steps. Like, let's just who cares? Like Monday's some arbitrary day. Like I get it, but Monday, something else is going to happen and throw you off. And like, well, next Monday, I'll do it next Monday. And then before you know it, it's the new year. Oh, well, the new year's coming up. I got the holidays. I'm like, I used to argue with clients and say the holidays are like 2 to 3 days. Like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. It's like, I'm like, I don't care if you ate whatever you wanted on Christmas Eve and Christmas. What did we do the other days around that?
Right.
And because of that, I have so many clients who lose weight through the holiday season, even though they still enjoy Thanksgiving. They're not going to diet on Christmas. I'm going to ask you to track your macros on Christmas. Kidding me? Like, how are you doing that? But if we can focus on all the days, like you said, like around it, it makes a huge, huge, huge difference versus just, well, these 1 to 2 days are going to be also like screwed the whole season. Like that's how people start January 10 pounds heavier every year,
Oh yeah. No, it's a big thing that like we try to focus on is like throw it out. Like you don't have to eat the last piece or two, or like donations. Like a big thing my wife was really smart with this when the girls were really young was we would take candy after like trick-or-treating. They'd get a certain amount of pieces they can keep. We're not trying to rob them of their childhood, but then we would take them to like the local fire department and donate it, and they could exchange it, and then she would buy them like a small toy. Like
I love that.
you can exchange it for, so it's not just a takeaway. It was like, hey, we get to donate this to help the people that serve our community, get some treats. And then, so it was kind of like a feel good for the kids. And then you go, we're going to swing by fill in the blank store and you're going to pick out a toy, it was $5-10, whatever. But it's just kind of, I thought it was smart because I was more of the, no, just throw it out, and she's very good at creating a memorable thing and making it more child appropriate, I guess, and especially versus me would be very unhealthy.
Yeah, versus like throw the candy away.
You don't need this crap, get rid of it. And it's like, okay, yeah, okay. So after seeing it, I'm like, yeah, so it is interesting how much you learn going through life, specifically about like human behavior, watching your child and trying to do the best, which we all want to do the best for our kids. And you really are more mindful of what you say and how you do and what you do in front of them. And you're like, oh, this is a nice little accountability tool walking around here.
Yep. I've already started thinking about that, and she's not even here.
Yeah. Well, when's the due date?
November 8th. So literally less than a month.
Yeah, my best friend, they tried for a while, and yeah, it's right the second or third week in November. So okay. I'm super pumped for that because he bought my girls like all the drums and all the loud toys and all this. So it's like, oh, paybacks, because now my girls are older. It's like, yeah, paybacks.
Payback's gonna be sweet. Are they having a girl or a boy?
Girl, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is a girl season. I feel like so many people are having girls right now. I don't know what's going on. But.
Yeah, as a dad, I can say I'm obviously a little biased, but I definitely wouldn't trade it for the world. It's a great thing. So
yeah,
but
my husband's excited to be a girl dad for sure.
Oh yeah. Every year I get the Father's Day or for my birthday and Father's Day. It's always like the cheesier the shirt, the better. So they rock it out. I got all the girl dad shirts and the if there's a show we're watching. And this year, my 10-year-old plays travel soccer, and she just says, "Well, I want you to come bring so-and-so to watch this soccer match because that one I'm really going to cook at." I'm like, what? She's like, "I'm going to cook." I'm like, all right. So now we're going to get a big blown up picture of her and put, "I'm going to cook" on it.
Oh my God.
I'm wearing that to her games. She's like, "I'll kill you, Dad. Do not." That's what dads are for. It comes with the title.
Of course.
So, well, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate you coming on. I know our audience does. And for everyone listening out there, feel free to put your questions in the comment section or send them our ways. We'll do our best to answer them and then connect you with Caitlyn to learn more about her services and where to find her. But just in case people who are listening on audio, we'll have this in the show notes. But Caitlyn, tell everybody where they can plug in with you, your socials, website, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. The best place to find me is Instagram. That is my most active platform. Instagram. My handle is very easy. It's Katelyn, Katelyn _Bliss, BLISS, like happy, so you won't forget. Yes, that is my real last name. Although that was my born last name, not my married last name. I do need to change that, but we will do that at some point in time. So Katelyn _Bliss. I do have my website, all my links there, all those good things. We are actually revamping everything with my site at the moment. So those things will probably change, but I can send you over some links to get in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us and for everybody for tuning into the First Optimal podcast. We hope everyone joined it, and we'll see you. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye.